All United States airports are today operating under the FAA's highest level of security precautions. The public will, of course, need to know this and should accommodate itself to enhance the enhanced security environment they found. In other words, they should get to the airport early. They should watch the luggage and their contents, keep eyes out for suspicious strangers, unattended bags. I've asked Admiral Busey, the FAA administrator, to provide details in a moment, and I've asked Admiral Keim, the Commandant of the United States Coast Guard, to describe as well the Coast Guard's beefed-up security measures at U.S. port areas. Those that are flying abroad and wish additional information concerning current travel advisories provided by the federal government should call the State Department Citizen Emergency Center for these current travel advisories. This hotline number is 202-647-5225. I also want to stress that we have taken these steps, as I said, to take these threats seriously, even though we have no specific information of current threats in the United States. These steps that have been taken by U.S. flag carriers, in particular in this country and abroad, make those carriers the safest in the world. And Americans should have no hesitation, subject to the advisories provided by the State Department, to fly on these carriers. And all we ask is that as you begin your travel plans, you take some extra time to make sure that you will arrive to the airports on time so that you can be accommodated, and so some of the steps that have gone into place can be taken without unnecessarily delaying anyone's travel plans. I'm going to ask now Admiral Busey, the FAA Administrator, to brief you in a little more detail on what the Federal Aviation Administration has done both in this country and throughout the world. Admiral Busey.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Let me get directly to the point, ladies and gentlemen. The crisis situation in the Middle East has required the Federal Aviation Administration to order stepped-up security for the nation's airlines and airports. At this moment, the system is at its highest state of alert, a condition we have labeled Level 4. This action was taken not because of any actual threat, but to assure that the system would be fully prepared to react to any potential threat that might materialize. Up to this point, the FAA has not commented on the details of its security program, and I don't intend to deviate today from that to any great extent, because this policy, the policy of security, in order to be an effective deterrent, demands a high degree of security and secrecy. To put it another way, publicizing security details can only benefit a potential terrorist, and this, of course, is directly contrary to our goal. But there will be some obvious signs of increased security at the 435 airports in our domestic system and amongst the 115 air carriers impacted by the FAA's order. Let me give you a few examples, though, of what I'm talking about. The presence of law enforcement officials stationed at our airports will clearly increase. Only ticketed passengers are allowed to enter the terminal gate areas, the so-called sanitized areas. Where available, explosive detection dogs are in use, and they will, of course, be visible to the traveling public. Unattended vehicles left at terminal curbsides are not going to be ticketed. They're being towed away. Curbside check-in of baggage is eliminated. Passengers may find themselves subjected to more questions concerning their destination and the contents of their luggage. There will be more intensive inspections of public areas such as restrooms, telephone booths, trash receptacles, and the like. Check-in bag lockers are no longer in use. Passengers will be denied access to their checked luggage after it has been cleared. And finally, the passengers, where necessary, may find themselves subjected to increased pat-down searches by security personnel. I'd now like to introduce Admiral Keim, the Commandant of the United States Coast Guard.
One of the missions of the United States Coast Guard is port security, certainly responsibility for our own facilities, port facilities, people that work in our ports, and the public that frequents our ports. In doing this, we coordinate very closely with the FBI, the Department of Defense, the intelligence community, the Department of State and local law enforcement agencies, and also with the marine industry. As Secretary Skinner has said, we have no information on specific threats to our ports. But we certainly are taking the general Iraqi threat very seriously. We're reviewing and exercising our security plans, doing this in coordination with the agencies I mentioned. As Admiral Busey just said, we too are not going to disclose the specifics of what these security plans are and what measures we're taking. They only would assist the potential enemy. We have an increased readiness posture in general. Our local captains of the port are assessing specific local needs, working very closely with the agencies I've mentioned, looking towards safe operation of terminals, vessels, and the ports also. And we are very pleased with the cooperation that we received from the other agencies, federal, state, and local, and also from the marine industry. We'll continue to be alert to any changing threat conditions, either general or specific, and will respond to any threat that may arise. Thank you.
Let me just, before we take some questions, I would also mention that the aviation industry, the air carriers of this country are very cooperative, and the steps that we are taking are done with their full acquiescence and support. I would also indicate that steps like this are being taken in a number of other organizations and in a number of government buildings and other organizations, even private sector corporations. So I think you can be assured that everybody is doing everything they can to ensure secure and safe operations. Yes, sir.
Can you tell us a little bit about other security measures in other aspects of transportation, such as railroad, highways, toll booths, bridges, and other possible vulnerable points?
Well, each mode of the Department of Transportation has taken specific steps regarding the areas that they have responsibility for. In pipelines, we've taken certain steps around facilities that might be subjected to terrorist activity, both pipelines and ports. It's also, if in fact it's appropriate, in the case of other industries, we'll take steps to do so. But I'm not going to get into each individual, but each mode of the Department of Transportation has the responsibility within their own area to take certain steps. Some are, as I said, more necessary than others. In many cases, the private sector companies have increased their security around their facilities with our support.
Mr. Secretary, is this level of alert unprecedented in aviation, and if it is it comparable to the El Al level of security that everybody knows about?
Well, let me say that El Al obviously has a outstanding system of security. I had the opportunity to visit in Israel and review that system with those people in December. I've also examined the systems that are in place at U.S. flag carriers that have been put in place in foreign airports. And they would tell you, and a number of airports and operators would tell you, that those programs are equally effective. So I don't think we can just pick out one system and say that's the safest and there are others that aren't. There's a number that are very comparable.
I mean, are the steps in general, though, comparable to the... I mean, I've never heard of the possibility of patting down people, passengers. This is something new, I think, to the American public. This sounds
Jim,
more
do you
like...
know if we've ever gone to this level?
This is the highest level of security we've ever gone to in our domestic aviation system. And to put it in perspective, let's keep in mind that El Al is an airline with something approximating 30 aircraft. We have an order of magnitude more aircraft than that operating in our system. But the steps that we have taken are patterned very closely wherein we can impose them after many elements of the El Al system.
I would also indicate that as a result of the work that Admiral Busey and Admiral Robbins, the Director of Security in the Office of the Secretary, have taken, a number of steps and programs have been put into place over the last 2 years since Pan Am 103 that were not in place domestically before. And we have actually now updated all those security plans on a domestic basis, and this is really the first time that we've ever been in a position to activate a system of this magnitude because of what's happened in the past. Yes, sir, back there on the right. Yeah, you got it. Grab it while you got it. Yes, sir.
The Department of Transportation is taking these actions on its own, or is there an administration-wide civil defense coordinator that has various programs going with various departments?
Okay. Well, let me say that without getting into the details, that the administration, all activities in the security area are coordinated on a national and government-wide basis. And there is ongoing meetings and cooperation and operations that are taking place on a coordinated basis. So this is not a unilateral decision of the Department of Transportation. This is done in conjunction with a number of steps that are being taken throughout government in a number of agencies to raise the level of security, and it's done with on a coordinated basis.
But
yeah, you can have a follow-up question. Yes, sir.
Thanks. Is there somebody who is running those various programs? Has this been discussed at cabinet level?
Well, I thought I indicated that this is being coordinated. I'm not going to get into the details how it's coordinated. It is left to the various departments to implement the coordinated program. Yes, ma'am, back there.
Mr. Secretary, can you tell us if this, even if this is not being done in response to a specific threat, has it turned up anything? Have you found anything so far in any of these intensive searches that would lead you to believe that there's terrorist activity afoot?
Well, that's two questions, okay? Number one, have we, as a result of this increased elevation, have things come to our attention? I think the answer is yes, but they're of an individual nature. Nothing as a result of the elevated security has come to our attention that there are specific threats of terrorists on specific airports or facilities. Anytime you raise the level of security, things are going to turn up that might not normally turn up, but nothing of international terrorist significance.
Was there a specific date for this to go into effect? Was it yesterday, today?
It went into it's gone into place at various stages, depending, but most of the steps began to be implemented after Operation Desert Storm began. Yes, sir, right
When
there.
did you last declare a level 4 alert? And secondly, you have very few TNA machines in operation, domestically and internationally. Do you feel that you have the means to implement a full security program?
Let me answer. First of all, I think this is the first time we've gone to a level 4. Number two, it was mentioned the systems like the El Al system and the other domestic airline systems, some of them rely on explosive detection and X-ray equipment, but many of them rely on other factors. I'm not going to get into the details of those, but the foolproof system for aviation security is a combination of technology and personal intelligence analysis and information. A number of the systems that are very, very effective combine that technology, and when we reach the point where we eventually have technology that will detect explosives and detonators at all levels, when we marry that with the individual intervention systems that exist in many of the airlines, we'll have a better system than we have today. But in the meantime, the steps that are being taken are very, very effective, even though state-of-the-art technology is not in place in all areas.